I'm Brad, co-founder, manager here at Project Daybreak. Project Daybreak is a co-venture between me and Edward O'Day.
Okay.
We started in 2007, right in the middle of recession. And yeah, I don't think either one of us set out to be business owners. But we had kind of been on the performance side of things for a long time. And realized we didn't want to do that into our mid-30s and into our 40s. So we kind of took a break from that, and we both ended up kind of looking for jobs. And the experience you get on the road performing doesn't really translate onto a resume. So I think we both had a bit of a hard time finding a job, at least I know I did. So we talked to a lot of different managers, a lot of people we knew around town, and they sort of all came back with the same thing, which was, you guys should start your own company. So we did. It's a full-service artist management company. So basically, I'm the head football coach of the team. I manage all aspects of their career, planning and strategy to day. It's a pretty robust job, and I manage all their, think of their offensive coordinators being the booking agent, or so-and-so is the publicist, and we just kind of manage all that to make sure everybody's kind of moving forward to the same plan. I think it's important for them to understand how things work, and to know that it's a process with many moving parts. Nothing is a phone call away. It's important to understand what each person of your team does, what their responsibility is, and the overall sort of basic blocking and tackling of how it all works. But at the same time, I think, it's a fine line, because I think sometimes artists try to get too involved in that side. I encourage artists to understand, and a big part of my job, I think, is educating them on what's going on and why this is happening this way. And it's good for them to know, but also I think it's good for them to be able to step back from it, because it is a very sort of tumultuous business with so many variables that you can't control. And I think it's good to be able to step back from it and have a team that you can trust sort of taking care of everything. Represent a band called the Apache Relay. They are an indie rock band. Signed them out when they were just a band of only 3 months. And we've had them for 6 years now. It's been a really great experience. I have a kid, and I say kid, he's just turned 20, named Guthrie Brown.
It's a secret that nobody knows, from where love comes to where love goes.
And he is kind of it's hard to describe. He's like a Dave Matthews, John Mayer, Ryan Adams with just a peppering of Zach Brown. Yeah, generally it happens pretty organically. With Apache, I had been hearing about them. They were sort of buzzing a little bit. Same with Guthrie. I couldn't go to a meeting with anybody in town, whether it's an attorney or an agent or an A&R person or whoever, was always talking about Guthrie. His name would always come up. So we're a boutique management company. It's just, and it's that way by design. So we give the selling points is we're able to give the artists like a lot of attention, more attention than some of the bigger management firms. You know, it's generally like a lengthy process of like meeting with somebody and talking with them and getting to know them and seeing if they're, you know, if their vision lines up with what you're seeing. You're talking about dedicating so much time and energy, and so it just has to be the right fit across the board. It has to be the talent, it has to be how you vibe with them. Are your visions lined up? You know, because it kind of is like a marriage. My philosophy is you always have to have like what I consider investment clients, where you know, when I signed Apache, whatever, I knew there was going to be a 2 to 3 year gap before I started seeing income.
Right.
It's almost like risk management. So, in these conversations with you're meeting with people and seeing how you vibe and if these visions line up and all that, I mean, it's really risk assessment as well on a basic level. It used to be you discovered bands through radio or TV. And it was basically passive discovery. You're not out searching for new bands. Like this is what they only a few select bands are coming through a few select channels, and that's how you hear about music. So you think about Netflix is a great example. How many times, or at least I know I have, you log on to Netflix and you spend an hour looking through titles to see where you're going to see, until you finally are like, and you don't even watch anything. I think it's getting that way with music, where people are just like, what do I listen to? I can listen to, whatever I want to. They're having stuff thrown at them all the time. So I think it has created this huge pool of mediocrity in music.
Yeah, oversaturation in the market.
Yeah, an oversaturation, and a mediocrity to it. I think you're going to see a trend where it starts to back down. I think you're already seeing it a little bit, like
back down as in mediocre musicians will start to weed out, like if weeded
well,
out.
sure. I don't think radio's dead.
Right. Because people are always going to want to be that passive, right?
Yeah, and I think that's always going to be a really big thing, and there are numbers to back that up.
Especially in country.
Well, like Mumford & Sons is a great example, like radio. Lumineer is a great example, radio. You still have bands like, great bands that I love, like The National, Vampire Weekend, Dawes, people in that range where they're having really viable careers. My Morning Jacket. But they do most of their business on the road, and they still scan a decent amount. But they're not selling like gold and platinum levels.
Right.
That's still coming through the radio for the most part. So I think radio, like, don't sleep on that, because it's not going anywhere. I think you're going to find people like that trend of like the public kind of like really looking and narrowing down what they really like and what they really want to listen to. One variable that you have the most control over as an artist is touring. You go out on the road, you build that properly, you build it smart. Each fan you make that night is yours. They're not your labels, they're not, if you have that, they're not your, they're your fans. And the Avett Brothers is a great example of a band built that way. Like, they relied on tour, and they went out. They had a great live show, which you have to have. And they built that business over like a 10-year period. I think if you touch somebody like on that level, like they, like with the Avets are a great example. Like, they go out and put on a great show. Then people would be like, "Oh my God, that was incredible! I'm going to tell my friends about it. Next time they're in town, there's, double the tickets that were last time." I think still word of mouth is huge, and being able to put on a good live show, capture that, and then I think fans will want to. I mean, look, we do all sorts of like email lists, social network stuff, like posting, fan engagement. But I think too, like if you the true like diehard fan is going to keep up with you no matter what. But yeah, on the business side, I mean, there's a lot of people who are like creating all these apps, and to try to help streamline process for artists and management or whatever. The two I love is a program called Master Tour. You have a band that's touring quite a bit. It's an amazing program.
Cool to do.
I keep track of all the tour dates, all the advance info, all the scheduling. It provides the address, and I can schedule interviews, TV performances, radio in studios, whatever. And it's all like housed in this program. It's constantly like syncing up with everybody's app. So like if I update it here, it goes to the artist's phone and they see. And it's just like there's so much information, for a touring band that it's such a nice program. The other one is fairly new to me. It's called At Venue, and it's a merchandise tracking app. So like, instead of an artist having to like physically fill out a settlement sheet, count in, count out, like put the information in before tour, and then like they sell, and each night it calculates like what that was and takes out whether the taxes or if the venue gets a percentage, and then automatically sends it to SoundScan.
Okay.
It cuts out like 4 steps or something. It's great. Yeah, it's generally from ticket sales guarantees.
Okay.
It's the bulk of it. Yeah.
Cool.
Merch is. It depends. Depends on how much merch you have, how old it is. Well, I mean, you definitely have to eat it a few times.
Right.
No doubt. Like, I mean, ideally, when you plan a tour, you have at least one anchor date or two. It's like, okay, I'm going to make enough on this one gig to float these 2 or 3 sort of like breaking in a market, not getting a lot of money shows, so individually. But yeah, I mean, it makes sense sometimes to like, okay, we know we're going to come out of pocket, but we need to do this for the exposure, or we need to get into this market. You always try to find ways to alleviate, going in the red, but yeah, you have to make those sacrifices. Model, you asked me what the model is. I think on some level, everybody's model is going to be a little unique. I've known artists that get a lot of licensing and film right off the bat, and that sort of drives it. Or maybe they do have a great live show, and that's driving it. Or maybe they're just like building. Jason Isbell's a great example. Somebody was just like, was in drive-by, and then he had a solo thing, just built until the narrative and the music lined up, and now. But yeah, I see one of the things I see that kills a lot of careers is these artists that, especially that have a lot of buzz. Like maybe they have a lot of buzz in Nashville. There's a lot of industry at all their shows, and there's a lot of people talking at them and talking to them, and a lot of voices in their ear about what they should and shouldn't do, and they sort of get caught up. The artist gets caught up in this whirlwind of people like telling them, oh, you need to do this, you need to do that, to where they find themselves in like this almost holding pattern. Like, maybe they're waiting, they don't take one offer because they want something bigger, or they want to wait and put out, I mean, I've seen artists put out a great record, and then somebody tell them that sonically it's okay, not a great. They get a bigger producer, pretty much cut the same record. It's not nearly as good. You can get stuck in overthinking everything, and having anxiety, and that anxiety like starts creeping over your art, and eventually you can tell.